Hi everyone, welcome to this new edition of my podcast, Show Me the Magic, where I interview founders of magical products, at least products that I find very interesting to showcase in this podcast. And today I have the pleasure to welcome Frank Sondors. Is it the right pronunciation, Frank?
Yeah, Frank Sondors, yes.
Yeah, you're the CEO, a co-founder or founder of Salesforge, an ecosystem of forges. You're the blacksmith of AI-powered sales machine. You explain everything about the ecosystem, the forges that you're launching, the forges that you've already launched and plan to launch. And we will dedicate most of the podcast to one of your products, which happens to have a button called "Show Me the Magic." That's the CTA on the homepage. It's called Agent Frank. It's named after you, I guess, and it's an AI SDR. And apparently, from what I've read, it's the best on the market. So you have to prove me that via the demo. So first, maybe let's talk about your journey. So what brought you to becoming a SaaS founder? What's your journey before that?
Good question. So yeah, I was born and raised in a tiny country called Latvia. Then I moved to UK when I was 16. Got educated there, finished my degrees, and then I started to work at Google, and after that for a few other software companies on the machine learning front, so the old AI, etc. So I was always in software and always sales, or essentially talking to people. And in my last gig, I led a sales team of about 50, so quite a large team, especially in Europe. And back in the days, back in those days, it was all about growth at all costs. And essentially having more headcount meant more revenue, better target attainment, etc. And I always thought that concept was broken. Why would you want to have all these bodies, essentially, all those individuals, especially considering the fact that there's a huge attrition problem in sales. So people come and go, right? So there's a acquisition and a churn of employees. And so essentially I hired hundreds of people in my lifetime, also fired hundreds of people in my lifetime. And the dilemma is that generally, in sales, in particular in sales, for every 10 salespeople, one person is really only the natural person, maybe one only. 2 to 3 people can be trained up to be somewhat good as the person that's natural, and then 60% is dead wood. These are the employees that are not accretive to your business. Really, the reason why you're hiring them is just to help you to attain your target, but they're not accretive. They're not actually profitable in terms of your company. So I always thought to myself, so based on the maths, why wouldn't we figure out a way of how do you reduce the 60% down to as close to 0% as possible and increase the output of the 40%? Wouldn't that be a lot more profitable for all the companies out there? And how does how does this software experience has to look like? So I really always thought that, the software space is really broken. And then naturally the large language models kicked in, right, with ChatGPT and everything a couple of years ago and so on and so forth. So it was the right time for me to make a difference. And we were one of the first companies to ever send what I would describe unique messaging back then. So ChatGPT came out, but we were, one of those companies that would send unique emails in different languages. And then it all evolved then to building an AI agent down the road. And now the AI agent operates fully autonomously, and does, it's quite successful. And yeah, we scaled pretty much, from $0 to $3 million in the first year. So quite successful. And from 3 co-founders to about 40 employees right now all around the world.
And where are you based mainly? Is it remote first or?
So remote first, I would say. So we have an office right now in Vilnius, in Lithuania. The company is Estonian company, so incorporated there for many good reasons. Essentially, why you want to incorporate in Estonia, I'm not going to go into that. But because we have a hard time to find really good talent across engineering, product, sales, and so on and so forth, we are sort of forced to look for them wherever they are in the world. And so the most east that it goes to is actually Japan, and the most west that it goes to is actually Dominican Republic. So no boots in the ground in the US, at least for now, even though US is our number 1 market. 60-70% of the revenue is from the US, which is very typical for any sales technology company.
Any SaaS product. I mean, most of them are in the US. I think 20,
Yeah, I mean,
20 plus thousand are out of 35,000. If you look at the LATCA numbers, for instance, It's
Yeah.
in the US, I think. So yeah,
I think it's quite
definitely.
typical, right? Especially considering the fact that I always say that sales as a as a thing is a science in the US and it's a bit of an art in Europe. So because it's a science in the US, everybody's trying to be always ahead of the game, always implement the latest tech, always to acquire customers a lot more cost effectively, and so on and so forth. And really, the dilemma is, if you look at the also macro level trends, to acquire net new dollars. For anybody, it's becoming essentially more and more expensive. It's just more expensive to be acquiring customers out there, whether that's due to labor. So the labor cost is going sort of, through the roof due to inflation. People expect, high salaries in tech and so on and so forth. But also the other dilemma is that because there's more software being built these days, it's much easier to build software as well. So there's more and more competition essentially popping up. And as a result, you have what's called a price pressure. You are unable to increase your prices as a lot of software companies used to do back in the days, because there's just so many competitors. You will end up losing customers if you're going to be increasing prices. So a lot of companies are really struggling, and the cost base is increasing, right? So this is, and if you look at your kind of where's your main cost? It's labor. And in sales, or from a CAC standpoint, right? So the majority of the cost is in sales, and salespeople are very expensive. If somebody doesn't know, it's actually one of the most expensive, type of employees out there. Especially, if they're doing a good job, right? You pay them a ton of commission, etc. So, but you always paying commission is not a problem, right? As long as everything is, your unit economics lines up. But definitely, there's a huge appetite, not just for myself, right? And the reason why I'm building this company, but also from other founders that want to run leaner and meaner teams. And we're actually seeing that in the last year. If you look at the companies in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, you see very small teams, sometimes 10 people making millions of dollars. It is possible, right? Due to a lot of more, it's not just AI agents, etc., just through more automation, using tools like NA10, Make.com, automating, killing repetitive stuff. For example, personally, I have a guy internally that all he does is just automation. His job is to kill all the repetitive work. And this is on top of what we do right now for our customers, right? So even internally, we're just killing everything that we can. So a kind of example to, in terms of efficiency. So we scaled to $1 million in ARR as a company without no employees. We had 0 employees. And then we started to hire first initial employees in support and engineering up until $2 million, but we still had no people in go-to-market, no marketing people, no customer success, no sales. And then only at 2 million mark, we started to hire because, I ended up having like 10, 20 meetings every day, Monday to Friday, going into work at 9 a.m. and finishing at midnight. I mean, I still do that, but I just have a significantly fewer meetings today because I have, a strong team right now.
What is the type of deal size that brought you to 3 million?
The deal size is about, because we are in SMB, about 1.5K to 2K, kind of fluctuates. But we're a bit like HubSpot. So HubSpot also started in the SMB space, and then now our goal is to go up market to mid market, and then eventually in about a year's time or so, with the speed that we're going, probably it's going to be a year. Worst case, 2 years, we're going up in enterprise segment, and then in every segment you have different types of competitors. But we're definitely having what we call the HubSpot playbook. HubSpot also had a lot of hubs, but they started in SMB, right? And then started building these hubs, and then this is how they expand. But yeah, part of having, the agenda capabilities, we literally right now have 7 softwares. We're literally released software.
That's the concept of the Forge, and I think one of your main selling points also is that you do all the hard work for the infrastructure, so for domain and
Yes.
email configuration, from what I understood. So if we compare you to, I don't know, solutions like Instantly or the other ones, there you would have to take care of your own infrastructure and bring your own configurations to the system. But in your system, I mean, I haven't tested it, so maybe you should explain to me how it's working for the configuration part. But from what I understood, it's off the shelf. On the platform, you can just configure your domains, how many domains you need, how many email accounts you need per domain. Am I right?
Yeah. So all these 7 softwares that we have, I mean, the software number 7, or I mean, it's the agent actually number 7, but all the 6 softwares that we have, everything that we do is all about email. 3 products on the infrastructure side of things. So we are the largest infrastructure provider when it comes to just generally outbound. We don't just power our own users; we also power other companies in the ecosystem with infrastructure. And infrastructure is actually the hardest part, if I'm very honest, because it's all about managing IPs, managing blacklists, managing making sure that nothing lands in spam and so on and so forth, having the right DNS settings. There's a lot of different things that goes into that. And infrastructure is like shoveling coal. It's difficult. Nobody wants to do it. It's not exciting as building the AI agent, but it has to be done because building an AI agent, it has to sit on something, right? So it has to sit on the mailbox that because otherwise, what's the point of having these fully autonomous workflows, delivering and having great emails, whatever, if all of that lands in spam, right? So really, the base, what needs to be taken care of, is the infrastructure, and we have 4 email service provider sort of options. So because we give companies, especially the ones that need to scale, we give them naturally multiple email service providers as an option, but to dilute essentially
But
across.
how is it working? For instance, let's say that I've got one of my domains, it's justdoers.com, and I want to launch a campaign, and so I
Yeah.
want to have some basic infrastructure. I would go to your website, and I would give, let's say, as a reference, to have some kind of branding relationship, the name of my domain, and then you would spin a few related,
Yeah.
domains for me.
Yeah, what we call secondary domains. They're also called parallel domains, burner domains. But yeah, you enter your seed domain, which is your business domain, and then against that, we would have a recommendation on the secondary domains. Typically, the .com domains are the ones that we always recommend buying. Reason for that is the whole internet was pretty much built on .com back in the days. People are used to .com domains, and hence they're less likely to report these domains for spam. That's why you buy .com domains. And yes, it would be some things like team doers.com, or like you would add a prefix or postfix like team, try, HQ, and so forth, and so.
You provision them straight away, immediately?
Yes, we do real-time provisioning. Um, yeah, on domain front and also on the email accounts, yes. So pretty much in about 10-15 minutes we'll be done.
Email will be based on the domains, obviously, that are
Yeah.
set up. Okay, and you do
Yeah, so
everything,
Frederick has, for example.
all the DNS configuration, all of that is fully provisioned. So how long does it take? And how many domains would you recommend to someone who would just start using cold emailing these days, for instance? If you want a decent volume, not like going crazy and blasting thousands of emails a day, but like a decent cold emailing campaign, how many domains do you need? How many emails do you need?
A typical customer, and this is, I would say probably about 70-80% probably of customer base right now, they would buy typically 5 domains and 10 email accounts. And each email account can only send about 30 cold emails per day. That means a maximum capacity of 300 emails a day for anything that you need to do. On top of that, you do what's called email warm-up to boost the deliverability. So we just have a product just for that improves the infrastructure health. So it's called Warmforge.ai. So yeah, that's a very typical. It's not our recommendation. It's what the industry recommends to do. But what I would say is typically the higher deal sizes are. So let's say if you have 6-figure deals as an example, so we have some customers like that, then you actually reduce the volume per email account even further. So it would actually go down to like 10 emails from an email account. You essentially reduce the volume, because every time when you're looking to increase volume, you're increasing the risk essentially of your infrastructure burning. So this is why there's a need for multiple domains, multiple email service providers. So we do everything: SMTP, Google, Microsoft, and so on and so forth. Just to de-risk, right? Because
Do you have a lot of, based on your experience, do you have a lot of the domains still burning, even at low figures? Still?
yes, so even though we see there's other key components which will make your infrastructure burn, but typically a domain burns within, on average, this is on average, 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
Is an average burn of the domain. That means typically you have to replace them within a year, twice. So right, and the way you can check that out is you can do what's called placement test, or like a spam test, to see if your actually domains land in spam or not.
But you still see, let's say, for instance, when people are using Apollo or other solutions like that, and when the first the first impulse or the first thing that's proposed is to use your company domain for that. So there's a real risk there that people are burning their main domain. So they should come
Oh,
to you to get safe, risk-free domains, even if they want to connect it to Apollo or something like that. I
the
guess.
only companies that can afford to connect their primary domains are the old school companies that have been around for like 10, 20, 30 years. The reason for that is they have what's called a very strong domain age. Domain age plays as part of the equation into this. So, but most of the companies out there, they haven't been even in business for like 5 years, like OpenAI, whatever, um, they haven't been around for that long. Hence, they haven't built up what's called the reputation. Domain age is definitely a core factor of that. So what ends up happening is you spin up your startup, you start sending cold emails, but your domain is like a year or two old, and of course it's a very good probability you're gonna burn that. So to de-risk any form of burn on your primary business domain, you always need to set up the secondary domains. However, what I wanted to say early on is that infrastructure is not the only factor of consideration. There's other three pillars I would always say. Pillar number two is the copy, what goes into the actual email. Naturally, you need to be, when you are engaging, you have to be engaging with relevance, personalization, whatever you want to call it, right? These emails have to be good, because if you're going to send a template, and you can see it's a template, has been sent probably to a lot of people, guess what I do? I click on the spam button because I know it's not for me, right? So it's not really talking to me, my pain, the pains of my company, etc. So copy is a huge part, plus what goes into the copy, for example, links, HTML, all of that can majorly impact your infrastructure. Then a pillar three of success is targeting the people that you actually engage with. You can have, the best copy, the best infrastructure, set up. But if you're sending to the wrong people, they're gonna be clicking the spam button as well, right? So targeting is very, very important. So on the copy front, we have Salesforge, or the agent Frank, that's actually that takes care of the copy. It computes these unique emails in different languages, French, whatever you name it. On the targeting front, we have a product called Salesforge.ai. It's like ChatGPT that connects to multiple databases in the world. So that's very powerful. And then the last pillar of success, is essentially the software that you use to actually execute the email sends. So think of it this way. MailChimp should never be used, for example, to send cold emails.
You
But
can't
there's
also.
still customers transitioning from
Okay.
MailChimp over to us. It's like crazy, I think.
Mm.
Um, so never use something like MailChimp, like a newsletter software, or like Beehive, whatever, to send cold emails. It's just not, these are not designed for that. And it says also in the TNCs of
Yeah,
MailChimp,
it's
it's not.
against the TOS also. Yeah, you can't do
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
you like they will ban you. And I know companies, for example, that use say SendGrid as an example, and it's the same in their TNCs.
Yeah,
It says
you
you're
can't
not
also
allowed.
use transactional. I mean, transactional is not
Yeah, it says
also.
it, transactional
Yeah,
emails, right?
yeah.
Exactly. So anything that's transactional emails, newsletter, it's not designed for cold email. And so, sure, you can try them, and maybe they're cheap, or whatever the reasons are, right? So, and maybe it works for a week, great. But I think we're generally in the business where things last, and we will not ban you because we know what you're doing, right? So we are designing the software or the IPs, whatever, everything, in a way that we're trying to reduce of you having deliverability issues. So deliverability and an email is mega important to date. The reason for that is that if you look at kind of general stats on the web, you have the best, you still have the best ROI from email. It's actually delivering emails to prospects and generating revenue from that, because sending emails actually is not that expensive versus Google ads or spending money on LinkedIn ads or some other channels, SEO, where things take time, right? So, but also at the same time, email is not the only channel that you have to kind of take into consideration. You, of course, definitely want to engage on LinkedIn. You want to do cold calling. I'm a big believer in like multi-channel to increase the conversion rates. Also things like multi-threading, you're right, to reaching out to multiple prospects. So we do all of the all the above. We do multi-threading, we do cold calling, we do LinkedIn, etc. Within our platform, we don't provide the ability to use, for
Yeah.
example, the agent on
Not
LinkedIn. But
yet.
that's coming in
Not
about
yet.
a
That's
couple
what you
months.
said in another interview. Is that you would consider multi-model, multi-channel in the future?
Yes.
Yes, like I know I was preparing the interview and trying to remember some of them that I've used and some of the other ones that I know. I've used quite a few times LGM, like Growth
Yes.
Machine, the French ones.
Yes.
You have the Dutch ones, Expandy,
Yes. Definitely.
and the other one, which didn't start actually as multimodal, but came to that Lem list,
Yes.
one of the big ones. And so in your plans, you also plan to add this kind of offering, multimodal, starting with LinkedIn invite, then branching between email and LinkedIn follow-ups. That's something you'd like to do also?
Yes, but with a big focus on the agentic front and programmatic computation. So, we're big believers that the templates, essentially any form of static communication that's being sent out is is about to die in the next 5-10 years. And the only form of communication that will go out from a business will be what we call programmatic. That means I'm sending, the best possible email, the best possible LinkedIn message, the best possible WhatsApp, whatever that is, right? So it
So
will be all programmatic,
crafted on a
one to one.
one per one basis. So it's crafted on the fly.
Yes. So think about of other, let's call it industry. So let's look at ad tech, or let's look at Facebook. Um, they use all these variables, right? So to show you the best
Yeah,
ads, right? To
real-time
maximize
bidding.
conversion.
It's a an RTB system, a real-time bidding.
Yes,
So yeah, so
it's typically the same. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just
you
for
would
outbound, right? So
yeah, you
or
just do real-time on the fly. Each message is different basically. Instead of having a template and you have variables, strings in the template, you just craft it on the fly, which is possible today with AI. Before you had the only possibility was syntax,
yes.
so, some variations like that. Today you can craft a sharp, sleek email that is very unique to the target, and you don't
And the
see
reason
that
why I'm
a
saying
lot.
this,
At the moment, I would say that I've seen it a few times. I even received a few of those emails. Sometimes they were, how would I say that, over-engineered. They wanted to do too much, to be too good, and then it sounds cheesy. Like using too many references, digging too much into the
routine.
socials, or something like that, and then it's this thing has been over customized. It's over the top. So you got to find the right balance between customization and phony stuff, I would say.
So to tackle this point, we're building learning mechanisms ultimately. So, when AI does a good job, you're saying good job. When it does a bad
Mm.
job, bad job. And bad job, either there's no response or the response is negative, right? So you could say bad job, but good job. Like there are definitely ways how you can solve this. Technically speaking, it can be solved. But yeah, you will still end up seeing bad emails. But guess what? Um, if you don't respond, or if you respond negatively, the AI will be punished, and hence it will self-correct. That's really what we're building.
Mm.
Um,
But do you tend to? I mean, in your early tests,
yeah.
do you tend to keep the emails, because it's also what usually advised, super short, very very tight, like a few lines, not too wordy?
Good question. So generally speaking, yes. So the user is whether the company is onboarding their own team or whether they use the AI agent, they can still control, right, the length. So in most markets, the answer is yes. They have to be super short, straight to the point, because typically important people only write short emails, and salespeople write very long ass emails, right? And they're pretty bad. But there's only one market that I know where longer emails actually lead to significantly higher responses, and that's the DACH region. So that means the German speaking
Okay.
territories. And for some reason, they love longer emails. And you look at the email's like super long. But for some reason in Germany, it is just expected to writing significantly longer emails. Their words are also actually significantly longer, just generally, right? And so that is the only market that I know where we would typically recommend to write
Mm.
longer
They
emails.
invented the printing press. That's probably why. That's they like they like text. So maybe we can switch to the demo, and you can show me the magic in action. I would be very interested to see, yeah, how it behaves, how it's configured.
So this is a demo account that we're in. So in here we can see. So we're in Salesforge right now, right? And there's
Yeah.
a few other products here bottom left that the user can enter. And we have mailbox connected. We have some contacts maybe coming from the CRM or coming from Leadsforge. Then the other thing that maybe I'm gonna go into this right now, where we store we store essentially all the knowledge about your company in a section that's called the Forge. So within the Forge, we have essentially different products or services that you can outline that you're selling. And there's it's a test account. There's a lot in there, but here's a very simple maybe example. Where we're outlining a value prop called Agent Frank for SaaS companies, right? So I put that down as an internal name, so I know what it means. And then we have a few fields that we need to fill out. So what's the actual the name of the product? So it's called Agent Frank. Which industry are we in? Who is the ideal customer profile of this? Then we need to fill out what is the pain that we're solving, what's the cost of inaction, and what's the solution. And you can see I'm not doing a good job because the system tells me you have to speak more about the business impact and what it needs to be, what's the best way to provide the right context, right, to present you really well. So we're helping the user to do that because this is a product that has to be used by the user, right? So we are trying to give them hints on what needs to really happen. So, for example, having numbers or metrics, what are the key benefits, what's the social proof, right? Any guarantees you want to give. Sometimes people want to give guarantees, we guarantee 30 days money back guarantee. So maybe that's the thing, and that's something that you should then outline, right? To help the AI do the best possible job, right? So because the outputs are only as good as the inputs, right, that you provide. And then you can do that in multiple languages, right? So you may be in different territories, so we can do the computations in Estonian, whatever other languages, German, and so on and so forth, right? And you're going to be entering the same thing. And this is super powerful, especially if you're in Europe and you're doing, European campaigns, let's call it that way. And let's say you have a prospect in Germany, then we can seamlessly adjust the copy in German, France, in French, and so on and so forth. So with localization, meaning if you're actually going to write emails in the native mother tongue of the recipient, typically increases the reply rate by 2x. There's a 2x relative lift. So, if it's 2% right now, let's say in the French market, then it's going to be 4%. This is what we're seeing on average. Like localization matters a lot. So we're big believers that when it comes to any form of AI, it's not about English, but it's also about other languages. So this is what it goes to, into got a product section, and you can have multiple products. And there are sometimes companies that sell multiple products. So like in my case, I have 7 products. That means I could outline 7 different softwares, and I can pick, the value prop when I create a campaign or set up for the agent. Then we have a section what's called the knowledge base, and this is essentially all the knowledge about your company. So this could be like a sales playbook. It could be FAQs. It could be pricing, the typical stuff that a sales rep has on hand, right? And you just upload that as a PDF or a text file. In the future, we're going to have also videos. You can have demo recordings, maybe Gong connected here and so on and so forth. But essentially, this is like a digital brain, right? And then the user will be able to also, something that we're going to be releasing, talk to the brain essentially and feed more stuff into that. So whether that's being done in a software by Slack, so it's additional context that you provide, but we'll be hooking up essentially to companies' internal knowledge a lot more and more. That could be Slack, that could be Confluence, whatever the different sort of knowledge-based softwares are. Now let's go into the AI agent. So this is demo data. However, this is real data that we're seeing right now. So this is so when Agent Frank has been launched, it's a bit of an older campaign. We have this is the campaign actually. So we have reached out to about 4.7 thousand individuals. This sequence hasn't completed yet. It has been just deactivated. We've got so it ran for about 10 days. It got 75 replies, and out of 75 replies, we got 11 positive replies. Typically, there's a 1-to-1 ratio from a positive reply to demo booked. Maybe not always, but maybe like there is about 10% drop off. So let's say we booked about 10 demos out of 11. Right, so this is real data, and that's an example. But on average, when actually the campaign completes in full, we would see, for now at least, 2 to 2.5% reply rate and about 10 to 20% positive reply rate. So that means 1 in or 2 out of 10 replies are actually positive, and 20% is really what it's the pinnacle. What really really good looks like in the space, right? So if 2 out of 10 individuals actually reply positively to you, and you're selling a typical, service or product offering, whatever you have, then that's really really good job. Now let's have a look how we assemble the agent. So you click on, so you can have as many agents as you wish. Typically, you have these multiple setups of the agent for different, maybe segments, different markets, etc. Right. So this is why there are other agent setups that we're seeing here right now. So first we need to decide, do we want to go fully autonomous mode, which literally end to end, the agent will be booking meetings for you, or you don't trust the end-to-end experience and you rather want to take over as a human and reply once we receive a reply from the prospect, right? So we call that the co-pilot mode. And so the only reason typically why you would do this, and we only have about maybe 10% of customers that do that, is because you don't have any information in the knowledge base essentially at the bottom. That's really the only reason, right? So because the agent is unable to respond back to every single prospect once we receive the reply back, right? Because the agent is only as smart as the input that you provide, right? Like I mentioned to you. So let's have a look. So we need to enter the website, so Salesforge.ai. We then need to select a product that we want to go with. So I'm gonna again do the same thing. So Agent Frank for SaaS companies, and we need to select the language we want to do that in, right? So if we haven't uploaded any files, we can upload the files here immediately on the spot. And so we just going over to the next section. So in the next section, we've got mailboxes. So this is where we need to set up the mailbox against the volume that we're looking to go with. We use this metric called active contacts. So it comes from sales. So how many activities are we doing? How many people are we engaging with at any given moment? And how many active contacts do we have in the pipe? How many are we engaging with at any given moment? So let's say 1,000 is our minimum actually that we do. And the belief is that, if you're not at least reaching out to up to 1,000 individuals at any given moment, it will be tricky to make the Agent Frank work. So we definitely have this what we call customers for where it's ideal to use Agent Frank, and then we have some other customers where they're definitely not an ICP. It was called anti-ICP, right? So let's say these are very tiny markets. Let's say, I don't know, you have only 500 accounts that you can go after. Like, you should not really use an AI agent. I think you can do everything manually. You don't even need any software. So I used to be in enterprise sales. I used no software when I only had like 500 accounts to go after, right? But when you have a huge TAM, typically, when you have a big TAM, and this is where you have pressure to hire more people, this is a fantastic proposition in the market. Let's set up the agent alongside the sales team to help us process the whole market, and let's understand whether the agent is more superior when it comes to conversion rates or not. Right? It could be the case, right? Where the human wins. But the thing naturally with the agent is that it's typically 10 times cheaper, it's faster, and typically more knowledgeable. Knowledgeable is the way you can just the reason why it's more knowledgeable is because ultimately an agent can process 1 billion lines of code, or information, right, about a company, and can craft the best possible reply, the best possible email, etc. So let's say against 1,000 contacts, so you can hook up different mailboxes that we have in here, or you can create the email accounts using one of our forges, right? So we can do that with InfoForge. So we just toggle this on. This is where we enter that seed domain, right? Salesforge.ai. And then we set up what should be the the names. Do we want to predefine the names? Do we want to randomize the names, and so on and so forth, right? So there's some use cases where you don't want to actually have your real name, and you just want to randomize. So that can be done. Then we outline the signature block, right? So we give a bit of a guidance there. Sometimes there's some random stuff in the signature, or a lot of links in the signature, and all of those negatively impact deliverability, right? So this is why everything that we do around content, we try to guide the user to minimize the number of mistakes that they do along the way. So I just gotta confirm this, and then I'm gonna click on the next step. So in this next step, we have two options. So this is around kind of data capabilities, like the targeting part. So we pull our data from leadsforge.ai. So that's our data product, and essentially just hooks up to the agent. So every time we release a new forge, we hook it up to the agent to make it more powerful. And this is how we're different to other companies, because other companies typically either rent the software for somebody else and then they hook up to their forge, whereas we build products, and when we use the API of that product and we hook it up to the agent to make it a lot more powerful. And we have other products that we have in mind to make the agent more powerful. Now, if you want to get the data from LeadsForge, then we would just toggle this on, and it asks you typical questions, to source the data across multiple databases in the world. Or there's option two. Let's say you have pulled data from HubSpot, right? So from your HubSpot instance or from Salesforce. So we natively integrate with over 20 integrations. So then you can pull the data, you can tag the data, and I'm just gonna put down, Agent Frank example leads. So you would tag the data, right? So we operate based on tags. And so we tagged this, we took this tag, and it says we have 15 contacts under this tag, right?
And for just to ask you, for LeadsForge, you said you're hooking to multiple databases.
Yes.
What would it be? I mean, is it names that we know, or is it
It's a typical,
sources?
like all of them, typical ones that you know. So we don't disclose the data vendors that we have behind the scenes. It operates a bit differently. But think of it this way: it's like Google search. You're searching for leads. You're asking questions, and you're communicating, just like it's actually like ChatGPT. And then behind the scenes, we're trying to figure out which database has the best data against the search query.
And what would
So
be, for instance, you would go, for instance, for the for the parameters, you would have company size, you
yes,
have the geos, you would have the industry, you would
you
have
also may ask something specific, like I only want to go after companies that do X, Y, Z, whatever. And this is something that we can understand.
which have a
Based on
tech stack, specific tech stack or something like that.
yes,
Also, I guess.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
things like that. Because our belief is that the database model is a bit broken. And also the problem is that a user sometimes needs to go to multiple databases to maximize what's called leads coverage. And the belief is that because there's also a lot of unsavvy people out there in the market, the best way or the best UI, the experience essentially, if the user actually talks, just like in the case of ChatGPT, and then let's say via API, you connect to these multiple databases and you actually give them the leads, the best
Okay.
possible
So
leads, right?
you're abstracting away the necessity
Because
to select your leads.
user does not care whether the data comes from ZoomInfo, Apollo, or whatever. What the user really wants: here's my ICP. This is what I'm looking for. Please give me the best possible leads.
And can you also in your system, let's say, exclude potential targets? Let's say,
Yeah.
for instance, I would sell, to give a concrete example, potential Odoo ERP implementations to small and medium businesses, but I want to exclude obviously my own clients, but I also want to exclude all the companies that I know are already equipped with that specific software. Do you also manage that exclusions?
Yeah. So we manage exclusion. There's a section which is typical in every, I think, software. It's called "Do Not Contact" section or block list, essentially. So you block a lot of that, right? So you do not engage with your existing accounts, competitors, you name it. Definitely.
Okay.
Then the other things that are coming or are on our radar that are coming soon is things like, for example, lookalikes, right? So let's say
Lookalikes.
you
Yeah,
closed
definitely.
100 accounts and you'll find more accounts like these, right? So
That
you
look
want to
like this.
find the people that you actually you close these individuals. You want to find similar people at those other accounts, like superpowers, so stuff like that. And then also going after competitive accounts. So we have quite a few interesting ideas that we definitely want to offer on the data side in the market that most companies just don't do.
Yeah. That's something that would be interesting for lookalikes, for instance. I was discussing that with LGM because they have some kind of lookalike capabilities in the system. But and you also see that for lead scoring in some CRM systems where they would just do lead scoring based on soft signals like do they have an email address, do they have a phone number, do they things like that, but they are not really pooling the data and the success data from the different anonymized accounts in the CRM, which is the most powerful thing to do if you have the agreement of all of your users. So let's say you've got all the users using Agent Frank and they sign a deal with you that they agree to have their own data pooled in exchange for having the knowledge from the data, the success data from the other ones. So the bigger you get, the better your lookalikes then become, because it's not only the success on your own account, it's the success across the market.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
you can have the signals, which is something that I think is still missing, because a lot of the lookalikes, even when you look at what Oceans is doing, for instance, for the lookalike, it's usually very semantic. It's usually very SEO type-ish. I mean, in terms of lookalike, it's like I'm looking for companies selling trucks, and then basically they would scrape the web to find trucks in the homepage.
Mm.
But then you can have a company really selling truck, but you can also have a blog about trucks, which is
Yeah.
not selling trucks, and you don't want that. So you want something that is totally relevant. Yeah. So yeah, lookalikes really powerful, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that definitely works in the market. Because yeah, just pulling the leads against ICP, you're pulling that from multiple databases, but lookalikes is just another thing. And then there's the intent signals and a lot of other things. But yeah, if you're going down to back to the agent, like so, I will say for any form of agent or automation, you need to give that autonomous capability a goal, right? So and a goal, typically is a meeting book. So we want to book meetings, right? But sometimes a goal could be just a click out because we don't want to have any meetings with our prospects, right? So then we would then, let's say in our case, we have a section app.salesforge.ai /sign up, right? And we just want people to go to the sign up page, right? We just click sign up, and then we also ask to set what's called a goal. And just like it's like Google in Google Analytics, you also set a goal, right? And then against the goal, there's a potential goal value. So you have some understanding of, okay, so if we achieve the goal, this is how much it's worth to me. So by the end of using the software or come the renewal time, right, with Agent Frank, the customer can easily see how much value they have generated from the software, right? So we want customers to see that. So we want the customer to assign a particular conversion and what's the goal, how much is worth to me, etc. So we would aggregate that and we would show them the value. Then the typical though setup is we want to book meetings, right? So we want to connect Calendly, HubSpot, Google Meets, and so on and so forth. Or where we see typically the highest conversion rates is actually asking from Calendly link from the prospect, because I think of it this way, customer is the king, right? So you're asking for their time, and it's the easiest way to get time in the calendar of your potential customer is to ask for their link, right? And then you pick the time. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna put $100. There's some additional personalization sources that we ask whether you want them to be used. So I typically take all of this on, including LinkedIn posts. So if there's any posts in the last 3 weeks, we're going to take those. And if it's relevant actually to the product or the service that we're selling, we're going to use that data to compute, the email. So we sometimes would say, hey, I saw in your post, blah, blah, blah. And then only if it ties to the service or the product that we're selling, then only then we would use that. We definitely want to set the availability, right? So so it's all good there. We want to set, this is where I talked about email length. For the Germans, I would set this one, the standard one, but typically it's always the brief one. Then some additional settings around multi-threading. We can also do localized greeting, which is actually very powerful. So, let's say in France, instead of saying, hey, Frederic, I would say, bonjour, Frederic. And it could so do things like that. You can also auto switch languages. Let's say if you reach out to in English, then the prospect replies back in French, the agent would actually automatically switch over to French. So a lot of these things, a lot of functionality that we're building is geared towards companies that operate in multiple territories, and they need the agent to speak multiple languages seamlessly. Then we click on next, then we preview, then we set the tone. Typically, the typical tone, I always like to use the informal one. However, we will be transitioning towards what we call programmatic tones. And what I mean by that, there is a way to understand and read based on web data what is the communication style or the preference that you would like me to gauge you in. Is it more of a direct or is it more plainful? Because this is what's called rules based. That means everybody will get it in an informal way, right? So, and we, as I said, we believe in being everything programmatic, on the human level. But that's where we're headed, right? And right now, so we only have this way. It's a rules based, so everybody will get an informal way. And right now we're computing the email So again, we're checking the value prop, right? So we call that the sell data, and we combine that with the buy data. So we have these 15 prospects in the list. They're actually very random. They're not actually our ACPs, but let's have a look even for like random individuals, like how it will compute the email. So here we go. So I'm just going to zoom in. So we have this person called Amina Nadir. We can definitely click on the LinkedIn profile, see if if everything's relevant. We have the title. We do subject lines. You can see it's lowercase, and it's actually on purpose because it has been proven based on millions and millions of emails that we're sending that lowercase emails actually drive significantly higher results. Reason for that is that every single typically email that is part of automation, typically you do see capital letters in subject line, and this is a bit of a pattern trap. When you look at the subject line like this, you're like, it looks a bit different, right? So, so a lot of things that we do actually behind the scenes is all about trying to figure out how do we make it look less like automation, even though it is automation, right? But how can we do that? So here you can see, hi Mina, so we are generating a short and snappy email. And you can see it for yourself. So every time so this is not a template, right? So every time we would compute an email, it will be always different because we do the computation in the real-time moment. And it says here, naturally at the end, could you share your calendar link? So there's an open-ended question to Amina, and it is towards the goal that we have set right in the previous step. And then we would replace Agent Frank with your name, it would be Frederick, etc. But that's an example. So let's go to another example. Again, less pipeline pain, more peace. So again, the subject lines that we compute is we're looking at what do we see in the profile. Naturally, so it is based on what we call the buy data. So because we do web crawling, right? We go check LinkedIn, we go check website, we go check the web presence essentially of Jitendra, this individual. And again, there's an open. Could you send your calendar link to discuss this, right? So.
And you
But
can fine
everything
tune. You can fine tune via the chat
yes,
UI
think of
there.
it as like Chat GPT. Yes, and some people have very, very, very long instructions that they actually provide to fine tune, right? So, and so on and so forth, right? So like every email is unique. So think of it this way. If every email is unique, it significantly improves your deliverability. Plus, the probability of receiving spam report significantly drops, right? Because you can see somebody has made an effort to write an email, and so on and so forth. So we can just kind of go all day long, but every email is unique. So we send up to 3 emails typically. So every email is uniquely computed, even the follow-up emails. They will be computed, they'll be sent over. And then naturally, when the agent receives the response back, then the agent communicates back and forth, trying to achieve the goal, right? And trying to book the person into the calendar of the prospect, let's say in this particular case, right? So,
and what would be the the typical pressure? I would say if you so you said 3 emails. So if you engage with 1,000 people during the course of 1 month, you would send the 3,000 email, or?
So we have 1,000 active contacts, and the sequence lasts for about 2 weeks. That means we would process at least 2,000 individuals, on a monthly basis. And versus the cost of $500, which is what the typical client pays us, we are one of the most cost-effective agents on the planet.
That's what I saw when I ran this comparison with some of the other ones. Yeah, that's when you reacted to my LinkedIn post. I think, yeah, you would also based on the assumptions of the meetings. If I remember well, it was around $50 a meeting or something like that.
Yeah, the best way we typically look at is less about meeting, but how much does it cost me to process a contact? Everybody typically, like especially in this space, thinks about, okay, how much does an email cost me? How much does a mobile phone cost me? Per lead, etc. So so we look at that metric, and it's about $25 to process, because we cannot solve what we call the product market fit issues or the product channel fit issues. But what we can say is, if you're going to use our agent, how much would it cost you to process one lead, right? And that's what we anchor on. And then if somebody says, oh, we would give we would process this many leads, well, what's the cost per lead, really? Because everybody has different plans, different add-ons, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So we definitely want to be what we call one of the most cost-effective agents, and we can do that because we have multiple products. So our cost base is spread across 7 products. So our unit economics are far superior than what we call AI agents that just have one product only, right? So they definitely have the pressure to increase the prices, and most of the AI agents in the market that I've seen, I don't know, it starts from like $700-800, but all the way up to like thousands and thousands of dollars over in the enterprise segment.
And what is the cost of the basic infrastructure for, let's say, those 2,000 individuals
Yeah.
in a month?
So we always provision domains. So each domain costs $14 a year. So that means $70 for 5 domains, which is what we recommend. And then 10 email accounts. Each email account costs $4 a month. So that means $40 a month. So it's inexpensive versus say a Google account, which costs $8.40 right now. So yeah, InfoForge runs on private servers with dedicated IPs.
So
And
that's another. So for you say $40 a month, so that's $500 a year for the emails, and 70. So yeah, it's around 500 for the configuration, and then
yes.
and then 500 for the agent itself per month. Then.
Yeah, it's about like total cost. So we have quarterly commitments with customers typically, not yearly, because we don't tie them into contracts. We don't believe in contracts and tying people into yearly contracts. So everybody is on the lowest frequency, which is quarterly, and per quarter is 1.7K USD. And if you think about it, it's less than a rep's salary a month. Plus, one thing that people don't consider is we actually give an account manager to every relationship. We set up a mutual Slack channel. Because the reason why we do that, because it's actually not very profitable at all to run this whole thing. But the reason why we do that is because 99% of companies have never used an AI agent. So if you know this stat, and it's like the internet moment. So most companies we engage, they've never used an AI agent. So we need to handhold them, and they always have gazillions of questions. Always, how does the agent operate? How's this? You know, and so on and so forth. And we're trying to understand where's the friction. You know, how can we make it, you know, product that anybody just go in, spin up, and we don't have to teach them. You know, but I think as a you know society, we're still not there. It's still, I think, gonna take like a year or two. So this is why we have, you know, account managers that we plow, and we're trying to make these folks successful. But it's definitely not like, you know, an agency. We don't want to actually, you know, arguably talk to anybody, you know, on the customer side. We want them to be successful with the product, be happy with the product, etc. And an AI agent is the most complex product that we have.
And
I
in
mean, it
terms
is the most
of
complex product in the market. So
in terms of industry or type of product, based on the data that you've had so far, what would be the typical most successful candidate for an agent, for an AI agent? Something that really works with an AI agent, and something that doesn't really work that well. So maybe on
good
the other
question.
side.
So yeah, because everybody has churn, right? Doesn't matter what sort of company you are. We also have churn. Everybody has churn. Now, the companies are what we call the anti-ICP. These are 6-figure deal companies. It's not very good at all. Because in 6-figure deal, the sales cycle is very long. Typically, you need to attend trade shows and many other things. Sure, you can apply the AI agent for a specific thing, but it's not really a fit, right? Otherwise, it becomes a bit like a square peg in a round hole. Like, you definitely don't use the agent. So it's something that we actually do with the customers when they jump on a call with us. We tell them whether there would be a good fit or not for this. And if they're not good at fit for the agent, we tell them to use the rest of the products, you know, which is designed for the humans, and then running their own campaigns. And what else? So high ticket, no. Then if the customer has a low TAM, like what do you mean? What do you mean by that? If the customer has less than 6,000 accounts to engage with, this is typically what we call high risk. So typically it becomes an anti-ICP. Why that's the case? So we calculate it in the following way. So if we're processing on a monthly basis about 2,000, let's say, contacts, over a quarter we'll process about 6,000 contacts in total, and then we would start re-engaging, you know, with the contacts in month one. We're big believers in what we call re-engagement, because one of the biggest problems in sales is the timing. When's the best time to engage? And
Yeah,
nobody knows.
to
Sure, you
remain
can use
top
a
of
lot of
mind.
intent
Yeah,
data,
to remain
but
top
you
of
need to
mind.
re-engage.
Yeah.
And we say you should touch your account or the contact once a quarter. So we have that logic, you know, that we're building in. But still, we need at least 6,000 individuals to reach out. And if we're not able to reach out 6,000 individuals, and that's a lot for a lot of companies, then the agent may not be successful. Now, the necessity to have more contacts would actually reduce if we would, for example, unlock LinkedIn, because LinkedIn increases conversion rates, and we would expect the reply rates to increase on the lower bound by 20 to 30% increase in reply rates. That means increase in meetings and so on and so forth, right? So there are ways that we're looking at to decrease the necessity to have more contacts processed by increasing the conversion rate.
And do you have clients using it for pure low touch products like
Yes.
self-serve onboarding, and then where it's not really a sales agent trying to book meetings, but where
Like
as you
us.
yeah, just click
Yeah.
and sign up, click and
Yeah.
use the
Yep.
product.
Yeah. So the clients, what they do is they create a landing page on the site, and they send, and it's just for emails, and they just set up the agent and tell the agent to send traffic there, and that's how they actually track the conversion path, right? Because all the traffic that lands on there is from the agent, right? Because we definitely are not connected, like the agent is not connected to the landing page, but every page load on the landing page comes from the agent, because that page is typically non-indexed. So definitely there are, because in some businesses the tickets are so low, applying humans or sales reps for the leads, this doesn't make sense for them. But they definitely want to drive traffic, and a lot of companies, they can drive traffic to SEO, paid, etc. But they may as well pay an agent $500 and let the agent drive traffic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
And as
the
as you
alternative
said, you're
to
at
Google Ads.
you said 25 cent
Yep,
for a
per contact.
touch per contact. I mean, even more than it's even less than that for a for a touch. Yeah, it's less than that because you engage multiple times with the same. So it's even
Yes, 3
it's even
emails.
yeah, it's
Per
even
email is less than 10 cents.
it's less than 10 cent per touch. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
which is yeah, which is pretty affordable. And maybe you also have some clients who want to use the system for non-cold outreach, for nurturing, or for maybe even if they have an opt-in list and they want to engage
Yeah.
in a programmatic way with the opt-in list.
Yeah, we do at least, I think we do at least like 5 to 10 demos a week just on nurture stuff. So it depends on what the goal is. Again, let's say let's say we have a list, and some companies have huge list, like 100,000 people in the CRM that needs to be nurtured. Great, let's apply the agent. But again, the agent has to achieve a goal. What is that goal? Is that sign up for a webinar? Let's go. The great goal, I think. It depends, but it has to result in conversion where you're generating revenue, right? Like, I'm helping you to get to the micro conversion webinar, whatever that is. Sure, the agent can do that, but I always say, don't drive conversions that don't generate revenue, right?
Because
So it depends.
do you cap in your model? Do you cap the volume of interactions of the agent, or is it just because we were talking about cold email, and then obviously you're capped by the volume of email you send, not to burn your domains? But let's say you would have a totally opt-in list that would be running on a traditional system where you can, without any issue, send a blast of 50,000 because they're all opt-in. If they hook to your agent, do you cap them to a volume per month of outreach, or how is it
Yes, yes.
working? Yeah.
So the $500 or 25 cents,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we said we process about 2,000, which is the lowest that we go. But there are
Okay.
some customers that want to send 20,000 emails,
Mm-hmm.
right? They want to 10x that. It definitely is possible, and definitely, in a case of nurture and stuff like that, that's where people start increasing. But for a lot of people, using the agent is exploratory, right? So they've never used any agent, right? So they always start with the lowest tier, right? So just to see what it's for them, and if it works, they're happy to scale up, right? So typically, like mid quarter, they start scaling up, because seeing results from the agent takes, I would say, about 4 weeks at least. Reason for that is you need to warm up the infrastructure, which takes about a couple of weeks, and then you start sending out the campaigns. But essentially, there's always like 3 to 4 weeks delay from the moment you start seeing the actual results, right? So initial impression, essentially, by the customer: does this work or not? Are we getting any replies, etc.? Is something broken? And then naturally, there's the account manager And a part of the reason why we have the account manager is to see, like, sometimes you see, okay, nothing's working with the agent, so we're trying to optimize. So optimizing, the product card page, so you've seen the value prop. Sometimes the value prop is totally off, and you're like, wow, this is a horrible value prop. And I told you, the outputs are only as good as the inputs that you provide, and sometimes customers provide really bad inputs. The value prop is definitely off. So we're trying to optimize, because it's not Google Ads, right? So you spend some money, you see some initial conversions or not, and you're trying to do something about it. But yeah, my take is, just generally on an agent versus Google Ads, because we also run Google Ads. If it's going to be a failure, an agent actually doesn't cost that much money versus spending money in Google Ads. It's like a bottomless pit when it comes to Google Ads. You can be spending endlessly in Google Ads. It's funny I say that because I used to work in the Google Ads team myself. So you see a lot of advertisers spending a ton of money, right? And things are also not working in Google Ads, and then customers churn. But the good thing with something like an agent, you can definitely target your ICPs, right? So, and some people don't just look at emails or like any form of emailing, just with the goal to reach out and book meetings. But for some customers, when we talk to them, it's about looking at it as a form of advertising. The fact that you generated impressions, something was opened. What sometimes happens is the user goes and Googles that brand and then converts. But the attribution will happen on the SEO front. And some companies are very smart around that front. They're like, okay, if I'm sending cold emails consistently, I'm seeing the number of search queries increasing drastically. And yes, my Google Analytics will say, great, the attribution goes to SEO or direct.
Yeah,
Well,
but
it actually
it also give,
yeah.
it also give a good it also gives a good signal to Google, because when you want to warm Google and to have more signals, it's nice to have traffic. So any traffic is good in any way.
Yeah, so this is
So
why the agent, or call it any channel, shouldn't be looked at as a standalone thing. I understand that people look at it as a standalone thing, but the smartest people in the world of sales and marketing look at what I call the integrated, the picture,
yeah,
the overall
the
picture.
marketing mix, yeah.
Yes, you have to touch the prospect across multiple platforms, multiple like specific frequency, etc. And only if you do the things in that way, things work out really well for your company. And I think this is the the dilemma, because I can definitely tell you an example. Let's say even my reps go and reach out to prospects, and then my sales reps only work with outbound related activities. So they reach out to the prospect, and then the prospect goes and signs up for a demo on inbound. And then the sales rep is very annoyed that they didn't get the credit for that demo, that the rep, because they get paid for demos. They didn't get the credit because the prospect went and signed up on inbound. They're very annoyed. So, I definitely have, from my own experience, etc. Having led, teams, and it's just, it's just how it is. So when I get a cold email, I'm also curious, like, who is this guy? Where's he coming from? I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna, try and find a website. And then if I like it, I go directly and book. I don't respond sometimes back to the email, and yeah, it's things like that. So that's why you have to look at it holistically. And then the other examples I can give you, like sometimes we would work with a startup, like, and they're just like, they're just very much in the early days. And what that means is sometimes you look at the website, you're like, damn, nobody's gonna convert. Like, it looks horrible. So think of it this way: like, if you have a good assets, meaning good presence on the internet, meaning good website, good LinkedIn presence, like all of that helps you to actually increase the results. And we definitely see lower conversion rate or lower because you're nobody, right? If you're nobody,
You always need to have some marketing, organic or paid reinforcement
yes,
with your sales effort. If you're doing, for instance, LGM or something like that
yeah.
on LinkedIn, and if you're no one on LinkedIn, you're wasting your time to a certain
Yeah,
extent.
I can tell
So
you, we get a lot of responses. So my sales team gets a lot of responses where they reply something like, "Oh, you work for Frank? Wow, that's cool." And so the reason why I'm responding is because somebody knows me on the internet. Cool, great. And maybe the results something, but like all of that, like is super important.
definitely,
And many people that we work with, they have no present, no present.
no, and also
And
many people they don't want to to be the face of the company, or to be
Yes.
active on behalf of their company.
But
Which,
everybody wants to generate revenue. Everybody wants to have meetings.
Which these days, it's difficult. I mean, because you're competing with people who are hyperactive on the networks
Yes.
across many different platforms. I wanted to ask you. So obviously, you're already very active in the AI space, as we've seen with the agent. But how do you see this thing evolving? And if you would project yourself in a sci-fi movie over the next few months or years, what would be the dream implementation you would see in sales of AI?
So what we're really going after is what we call improving buyer experience overall, right? So because if you're not really looking at improving buyer experience overall, and you're gonna send, let's call it, emails, like everybody's sending emails, ultimately due to LLMs, generative AI, etc., buyers will be overwhelmed by more emails, because it's just easier to compute more and more emails. So everybody's going to do that, whether us or gazillions of other AI agent companies. But the buyer, instead of getting templates, will receive a lot of unique emails, right? So it will change just over time from templates to unique emails. And we're already seeing that a lot of buyers are using software to filter out emails using Gen AI. So where are we headed? We're headed towards where companies using AI agents to reach out on the seller side, and then on the buyer side, we have AI agents talking to the sellers.
To the
And ultimately, AI agents will talk to AI agents. Because
agents.
businesses are ineffective.
You've got your own buying concierge, and
Yes.
you delegate your buying capacity to
And
an
the
AI
qualification
agent.
process, yeah. And
Yeah.
imagine the buyer agent can talk to the seller agent, and they can self-qualify, right? And if this product solves a particular pain of the organization, then I can imagine that on the buyer side, it will flow to the top, to the human, to review this email. But all the qualification process, this tango back and forth, we see if we're fit for each other, it's like dating. That would be done by the agents. And that's because, ultimately, as I said, there's more and more software is sending emails, trying to reach out to the same buyers, but the number of buyers not necessarily exponentially increasing than the number of sellers out there, right? So
And
definitely buyers get overwhelmed.
have you already received requests from potential buyers for a tech support from the buying side, or is it?
Yes.
Yes, already some
Yes.
people reaching out and saying, "Could you help us figure out a way to find find a good solicitations among all the things that we receive?"
Yes, definitely. And we will be doing a lot of work in that space actually ourselves, because we don't believe in, hey, let's just build another, this software. And there's gazillions of, you have to do things intrinsically different. But the North Star, what is the North Star? The North Star is to improve buyer experience. But I'm on the seller side, right? So
Yes.
for now, at least. So I've been in sales for over a decade, and like everything that we're doing, trying to optimize here and here and here, like from a buyer standpoint, if I will be able to provide you a prime experience, then things will get better. There'll be less noise or less spam or less irrelevant communication going out to less people. So you need to build tech a bit differently. So we are big believers. So we have a lot of tech on the seller side. We already have 7 softwares. We'll finish maybe at about 10 softwares in total on the seller side. And then we definitely have plans to have software also on the buy side. And as I said, the ultimate goal is to figure out how do we message or reach out to the people that are actually interested in our stuff. And without helping the buyers in any meaningful way, you're never going to be able to achieve that.
Yes, you also have this concept of helping the buyers signal their intent. I had this idea a few years ago. I still remember that. I even had a brand for that called Buy Me Up. And the idea would be that you were a buyer, you wanted to, even B2C, switch from one service to another one, new mobile plan or new broadband plan or whatever. You would raise a flag in the wild, and you would be visible for the vendors, because even in B2C, vendors are spending a lot in acquisition costs. I mean, you would have like a broadband vendor spending €500 for a new customer, or mobile plan vendor spending €500. So there's money there that's being spent on CAC, which is quite huge. And sometimes you could even incentivize the buyer to get a cut from that money that's spent on them, because a lot of the money is spent on still today on mass marketing, like blasting a lot of money in the market to try to find the target.
Yes.
So you've got a lot of waste in the 500 euro for a mobile plan.
Yeah.
That if you knew exactly when people are raising a flag, I'm raising a flag, so just come to me, because I want a new car. I want at the moment the best example of that is the comparison platforms, comparison marketplaces, where you switch all the other ones. People go there and then they get a few quotes from the vendors. But that's still the old school way of doing it. You could have something more advanced, I guess, to manifest your intent to the market, and then let your agent chat with the agents of the vendors, and then you would just have an offer and saying, okay, we know that you've got that intent. We found some vendors. Here's the best deal. Just sign if you want. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and when I think about when I receive cold emails, I always think to myself, I got 99 problems and this ain't one. And I wish people would reach out to me about the problems I have.
Yeah, you
Doesn't
are,
exist.
because you have problems that you want to solve, but
I wish I could
there needs
the
to be a
market.
transactional way to manifest your intent and your real issues without being spammed. So that's also the balance is there.
Well, that's where the agents come into play,
Yeah,
right?
that's why the agent is a solution.
Signaling and applying agentic, I mean, that's ultimately where I believe the world's headed.
Yeah, totally believe
ultimately
in that
because
also.
businesses are just unfortunately not able to talk effectively with each other, and that nothing will change about it, to be honest.
But that's a good start already, what you've done, and I think you're on the right way. I mean, in terms of branding, in terms of presentation, execution, what I've seen from the demo, really well done. I'm a product guy, as I usually say, so I can see the difference between a good and a crappy product, and yours is on the good side, so that's great. And thank you for jumping so fast on the call. I think we started chatting 5 or 6 days ago, and here we are for the podcast. So if people want to find you, they can go to Salesforge.ai. That's the website, and then there you have all the suite of the products: InfraForge, MailForge, WarmForge for warm-up, LeadsForge for finding your leads, and Agent Frank, the #1 AI SDR. Thank you so much, Frank, for your time. We'll stay in touch for the next products, and I invite everyone to go to Salesforge.ai. Thank you.
Thanks.